Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks for inviting me virtually to talk on one of my favorite topics. My name is Patrick Barkey. I'm in Western Montana where the sun is up. It's a little chilly, but it's always great to talk about contesting and talk about the WRTC competitive experience. This little title slide is an old slide. I'm a little younger there. You might recognize who I'm talking to there. That's K5ZD down Uxbridge during the San Francisco WRTC in 1996, which was my very first one. And it looks like we're just talking, but really, I have a ulterior motive. I'm looking at Randy before the contest, and I'm thinking I finally got you, because every time Randy's operating from New England and I'm operating from the interior, and he beats me up pretty good in the DX contest. But by God, we were out at WRTC with equal stations, and I looked at him and said, I got you this time, guy. Well, we'll see how it turned out. I want to talk a little bit about WRTC. First off, who am I? I've been contesting since, the 70s. WA8YVR once a long time ago. Operated a lot of multi-ops. I lived in the Midwest until 2007, roughly 15 years ago. And I like the X contests and SS and Sprint. That's a little shot of my station. Mitch W1SJ asked me to kind of go off topic here a little bit, talk a little bit about what I have for antennas and stuff. So this isn't really in the theme of the talk, but I'll go through this pretty quickly. I've got a 4-tower station in Western Montana, outside the city of Missoula. Features 2 rotating towers. This is the biggest rotating tower, 180-foot tower with a 3 high stack on 20 meters of homebrew monobanders. And that 4-element 40 from the side looks kind of small, but it's pretty good size antenna. I brought this out from Indiana, where I had it set up there. Chrome 55. Little picture on the left of the 40 meter going up with a crane. Had to put everything up with a crane because of the trees. On the right is a second rotating tower that has 10 and 15 meter stacks and a 2-element 40 that I use for firing in different directions. Third tower is one I brought over on a trailer, as you can see, from the Midwest, Fort Wayne, Indiana. In fact, brought this Pirate over. It's a self-supporting 100-footer and gives me some ability to fire in different directions with this. And then I have some low band antennas, which are always hard to see with the trees. Somewhere in the trees is a 4-square. So take it from me, it's really there for 80 meters. And then on 160 meters, I have a base insulated Roan 25 tower in the front yard, hidden in the trees like everything else is, with some parasitic reflector and directors for firing different directions. So that's a little bit about my station. There's my my station setup, which is always changing. 2-band, 2-radio contester. A lot of my stuff is controlled with animation software that allows me to control all my antennas with just that itty-bitty touchscreen you see. So that's actually the opposite of WRTC, because when you go to WRTC, you leave all that wonderful stuff behind. Or if you don't have all that wonderful stuff, you don't have to worry about it, because it's what you bring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about WRTC from the point of view of a competitor. So competitors are the people who are on the actual teams that are doing the operating on site. If you don't know, WRTC World Radio Sport Team Championship is a concept where 2-person teams go to different sites all in a single geographic area, like in this case, San Francisco. And they set up in stations which are set aside for them. And they operate according to rules with referees and with lots of things that don't exist in normal contesting. I'll talk about that in a second. So let's give you a little quick biography. This is flashback to 1996. This was not the first WRTC. The first WRTC was actually in 1990 in Seattle. It corresponded to the Goodwill Games. Ted Turner used to run when the Olympics were canceled because of politics one time, and the Goodwill Games came about, and that's a longer story, but there was a WRTC, the initial one in 1990, and then it took till 1996 to do another one, and the Northern California clubs got together and hosted WRTC 1996 in San Francisco. So my friend K3LR and myself, who you see much younger versions of ourselves in that picture, we felt like we really blew it by not participating in 1990 as competitors. So we were determined to make it out to this one, and we did. And this is a couple pictures of us. We were at a station that belonged to a gentleman, Al, KE6OT, very, very modest station in San Jose Valley. It's a single transmitter, so you see two of us sitting at that table in the center, but the guy in the right, which in this instance was me, you can see I have no keyboard. I'm just sitting there tuning and feeding Tim stuff or doing whatever I could do. So it was a single transmitter. How do we do? Well, we thought we did great. We had second highest QSO total, but we didn't, there's more to contests than QSOs, and our multiplier was pretty bad. So we ended up scoring number 18 out of 52 stations. You can see our tri-bander up there for a 14-foot boom. The top scores had 24-foot boom tri-banders. So they had a little work to do on making all the stations equal. What can you do with a special call? We did have special calls. So our call was one of the first uses of the 1x1 calls. Our call was W06 Alpha. And we're sitting there with a lousy little TA-33 at 40 feet on top of a suburban house. And
November 4 November Oscar, thank you. Whiskey 6 Alpha.
Pile up action for you.
Quebec Tango 596. Is it Tango? TJ7 QT, thank you. Whiskey 6 Alpha.
Whiskey America 8, Sugar Whiskey Mike.
WA8SWM 596.
QSL 590.
Whiskey 6 America.
November 5, November Mexico.
This is 100 watts.
5NMX 596.
597.
TA-33.
America.
November 5, Delta Oscar.
N5DO 596.
5907.
Whiskey 6 Alpha.
We have to listen to much more of that.
B7XO 596.
We-
Whiskey 6 Alpha.
You get an idea listening to that, how special these operations are. The world was looking for us. And so even though we're very modest antennas and low power, that happened to be a very low sunspot year. So it was mostly stateside stuff. But it's really cool. And these contests are very intense. So Tim and I kind of licked our wounds. We didn't participate in the first European WRTC, which was in 2000 Slovenia, but we did go to Finland in Porvoo, and we operated from a station OH2HXT, and it's the first time we ever operated from Europe, which was really, really cool. We were just down the road from the team that actually won, N5TJ and K1TO. They were number 1 and we were number 22. So, your ego can take a beating in these things. We did okay. We won the hardware competition. Tim at that time was at a position with a cell phone company, and we brought over the biggest container of equipment you've ever seen. Everyone looked at it. It was amazing. We bought big, heavy ICOMs and big, heavy monitors, and you could see all of our stuff set up there. So we won that competition, but we didn't win the contest, far from it. And it was there are a lot of lessons to be learned there. I mean, really, we were both kind of hardware guys, station builders and so forth. So we put a lot of thought into setting up the station, how we do it, and not as much thought into the strategy, and the score suffered accordingly. Then we came back for a third time, and WRTC was held for the first time in the Southern Hemisphere. And we got to go to the wonderful community Florianopolis in Brazil. And it was beautiful, fantastic scenery. A lot of things were different. We ran amplifiers. We had ACOM 1000 amplifiers. We had 40-meter Yagis. We had just a wonderful experience from that point of view. we definitely drew the short straw. We happened to get a QTH, which was just beautiful to look at. Unfortunately, that view behind us is actually the shot to the southwest. When you know you go down to Brazil, all the action is north, and to the north we were blocked by a mountain that was literally across the street. So we limped into a number 34 finish, and we thought about retiring. In fact, we did retire as a team. We didn't run any WRTCs, but after I had moved out to Montana, decided to give this thing one more shot with a different teammate. N6TR was a teammate, and we went to Germany in 2018. And we did a lot of things different. We had a very, very simple hardware setup. We just kept everything as simple as possible. At this time, this WRTC, as you can tell, I'm reading off these years, has been through several iterations and really had perfected the concept of equality of stations. So you can see the tent behind us. Everything was set on level ground. It was an attempt to make all the stations as equal as possible. And we finished 21st, and that was disappointing, but not that disappointing. I mean, there's some awfully good operators at WRTC. We wish we would have done better. I have a comment on there about how sportsmanship was deteriorating, and that is a concern of mine in WRTCs, in that it started out just perfectly pure. Everything was operating spirit of ham radio and so forth. And as it's gone on, people have started doing what they do in a lot of competitions, which is pushing the rules to gain an edge. I'll talk about that a little bit in a second. So what exactly was the experience? Boy, I'm looking at a picture of a room and there's nobody in it. Please tell me someone's listening to this. So what was the experience exactly? Well, the real experience starts 3 years before the event, because going there is just the cap of the whole experience. There's a qualification process that is now required in the modern WRTC in order to become a team leader and a teammate and so forth and a competitor. And you really have to commit a lot of your time, and you have to have an understanding spouse, because you're going to operate a lot of contests in an attempt to qualify. And as the event gets closer, you start studying the rules, planning your station, the logistics. And some people even go over to the country where the competition is going to be held a year before to learn what propagation is like. So it's quite a bit commitment of time. And then, of course, when the date comes, we pack up and travel. And the date for the whatever you want to call it, the 2022 or the 2023 WRTC is right up on us. It's this July. So that date is coming very close for the Italian version of WRTC. When you get there, it starts out as just a complete party. So you typically, the competition will be on the weekend of the IARU contest, second weekend of July. You show up and you see all these people from all over the world. It's incredible. Just a couple pictures of Germany. What people are milling around. People are just having a great time. It's a fantastic experience. In Finland, there was a field trip mixed in. We went out to this campground with a ham fest and just hung out and just had some incredibly great experiences. And you got to have an antenna. In Florianopolis, of course, they had the hotel. This actually was the antenna setup that all the competitors used. You can see that's not too bad of a setup for a bunch of portable stations. And you got great scenery. Brazil, we were at a resort that was just outstanding. So, but then as the time goes on before the competition, there's these meetings, and WRTC brings together all these Type A people, and they get together in meetings. And you can see all these people with their game faces on. I'm in the back row. There's Ward and 0AX standing up, and these meetings go on. I mean, there's meetings and meetings, and all these people are intensely looking at what's going on. And some of these faces you might recognize. Dave Sumner is around there someplace. I think he was in one of those pictures. Maybe he was in the old one. But there's K3LR, DL1QQ, some various people in these pictures. So what's going on with these meetings? Yeah, here's one in Finland. I mean, all these people getting together in these meetings, and these meetings are there because it's a competition, and the rules, the fine points of the rules are addressed in these meetings, and they're kind of chaotic. At best, they're just boring. You sit there and watch people go on, but they get there's referees involved in this as well, and they coordinate to make sure everything's consistent. But referees are human, and they get out of these meetings, they're told what they're supposed to do, and then say sometimes do something differently. There are a lot of things that are involved being a WRTC host. I'll just say that. There's the log checking. There's all the issues. Boy, the issues this year are just incredible with the Ukrainian war, the political issues and so forth. But being a host is not easy, but it's really a interesting event. And you really come headlong into the cultural issues that are revealed between people. So what is this WRTC? It's evolved over time. It's a contest within a contest. So there's a contest called the IARU contest, the second weekend of July. It's existed since the 70s, and this contest occurs within it. So WRTC has its own rules, but everybody has their radio on and they're participating in the IARU contest. It has changed. By the way, in 1990, that was not the case. IARU had its own contest. But since 96 in San Francisco, it's been part of the IARU. Antennas were standardized, so no more 24-foot boom tri-banders versus TA-33s, starting with 2000 in Slovenia. Starting with the Russian WRTC in 2010, now the norm is for flat terrain field day style stations. That's really sought after to try to even out those inequities of physical location. They've gone to multi-2 rules since 2014. There's a live scoreboard involved, and there's always been an emphasis on log checking, on-site referee that listens to everything you do, recorded audio. It's really quite an event. Have there ever been any disqualifications? No, never. So there's been shenanigans pulled in these things, but no one has ever been disqualified. It's not the same for everybody. So for us going to Europe, of course, Europe's a fun place to go. We get to travel there. We get to hang out with people you've contacted many times and meet all kinds of new friends. And the excitement of the competition is really cool. But you do have to haul your station over there, which is not horrible, but it's it's not the most pleasant way to travel. It is a little intense, especially before the event, because there's literally 100 Type A people all trying to gain an edge debating rules that gets really a little bit it irritates you a little bit. You get to operate the contest, which is incredible. It's lots of fun being a competitor running the contest. You got a flavor of that from that tape, and you're learning about what that's all about. But then, of course, most of us lose the contest, which is not fun. And after you lose, you get to hang around for another 2 days with the same people that beat you. So it's a little tough on the ego. I will tell you that quite honestly. It's pretty cool though, and it's fun as a competitor. But like I say, I think all the people that actually go there are winners in some way, because you have to come out in the pre-qualification competition in order to even be considered. So it's kind of like a Grand Prix event where you get various points for running various contests. And this is a little grid of how the rules worked. In this case, this was for the German WRTC in 2018. And I won't go into all this, but you see some of these contests are there with a number of points there. And basically with the world divided up into these qualifying areas, I happen to be in the northwest part of the US. I don't remember, that was number 6, I think, at the time. And you can see, for example, if I were to win the CQ Worldwide CW, I would get 1,000 WRTC points, etc. So there's kind of this competition within the competition, and there's all this gamesmanship in terms of how you do this. But boy, it's a lot of contests. and you end up running a lot of contests. So this is just a couple examples of how things turned out. You know, this is really kind of complicated. And there's a lot of strategy involved in this, but these are these various contests you can see, and they were, of course, back in the past because this was the 2018 event in Germany. And there's some event. The first one where I ran the I ran the AWLDX and I had a score, and it was the highest one in the area, so I got 800 points. And then you can see the third one down, the Russian contest. I ran the contest, I didn't win, and I got less than the full points, etc. So, at any rate, you go through this qualification, and you end up running a lot of contests that you normally don't run. You know, out in your end of the continent, maybe the Work All Europe contest is a lot of fun, but on the West Coast, there's not really much to do, especially in the lower sunspots that we had back 5 years ago. And so we're all running the Work All Europe phone contest here from W7, so we can get WRTC points. And this is just an example of some of the gamesmanship that happens, trying to figure out the strategy of how to qualify. So let me talk a little bit about how the event actually proceeds then. It changes every time. So I'll talk a little bit about how it worked in Germany. And it's pretty cool. There is an opening ceremony. This started with the Slovenians in 2000. They did this. They had everybody march into a common building, a common room, and with their little signs, with their countries. And these teams would come in. You can see these countries, you know, in the upper lower corner, and you can see, I mean, in some cases, I mean, the Russians had people dancing and they had entertainment and so forth. So you have this big deal with this opening ceremony, and this is the opening ceremony in Germany. Everybody got in this room, and just to add a little buzz, and this has happened almost every WRTC, is they give you some kind of special call sign. When we were in Germany, they revived the old East German call sign block, which if you've got a little gray hair like I do, you remember the days when East and West were different countries, at least as far as AWRL was concerned. And you had these Y8 calls, Y calls, excuse me. And this was the Germans had retired those with reunification, but they brought them back out for WRTC, which was kind of cool. It made us really stand out on the bands. We had all of these calls. Our call was Y83 Victor, I believe. And so there we are, and this made a big whoosh. You know, this was exciting. And then as you get up towards the contest, the party atmosphere dies, and everyone gets their game faces on, and it becomes a much more serious affair. So one thing that has to be done is that there's, in this case, 52 teams. There's 52 stations. Which one do you get? There's a draw. So you get a station and you get a referee. And here's, and of course, every station has a sponsor. This is a shot, I believe, from the Boston WRTC in 2014. And I think this is a Czech team. I'm not really sure who those two folks are. I know that's Glenn K6A in that picture. So you sit in this room waiting to be called, figure out what your station referee is, and you're trying to figure out where you go on the map, etc. So competitors have no say. It's random. There are a lot of countries involved here, though, and you know, I suspect this year, for example, if the Russian teams in fact do come and the Ukrainian teams do come, the Ukrainian referee will not be assigned to a Russian team or vice versa, as you could probably understand. So it gets really serious. The party ends. So that last point is that the room empties out as people get their assignments. They get in their cars or however they're getting to their station, and they peel off and they go set up. And a couple other pictures of just people taking pictures. So you set up. So in the case of the German teams, I got some pictures here. We were all in tents. So when we showed up at our station, and we're not pictured here, some other folks, we showed up. There's a tower and a tri-bander and some wires set up in a tent, a generator, etc., and an empty table. And we came in kind of field day style, and set up all of our stuff. And this would be on Friday. And boy, it was great weather there, a little bit warm, but you can see all these people setting things up, testing things out. And there's also referees involved. So so one of the things that we had to do, the Germans were we had to apply and we had to file all kinds of paperwork. And one of the things we had to do is we had to say to the Germans exactly how our station was going to be set up. So they asked for this block diagram. So this is really nothing very fancy. You guys probably have all this too. It's just a K3 barefoot running into a bunch of antennas with some computers connected. Couple things different. We had bandpass filters, yes. We had a triplexer, yes. So we could use multiple bands on a tri-band at the same time. And we had this thing called an audio box in the lower left-hand corner, which is where the referee could plug in, because the referee would listen to both of our audio streams the entire contest. And we also had an Ethernet cable to a switch, which provided the live score reporting to the central WRTC scoreboard. So people at home could watch the WRTC. So that's the day before. You get everything set up. And 15 minutes before the contest, and of course the contest starts at 2 o'clock local time, so it's the afternoon in Europe, 1200 Zulu. 15 minutes before the contest, you open this envelope, and there we are with the referee YU7AW on the left, and there's Tree N6TR and myself. We're opening the envelope with our call sign. So we get the call, and then we go back into the tent and we program all of our, CQs and whatever and the software. And then you turn the volume knob down. You're not allowed to listen to any audio at all until exactly 1200 Zulu on the dot. You turn the volume up and off you go. And you're running the contest, and now it's just a contest, right? It's certainly a different place to operate a contest, different antennas. You don't know how things are going to work. And people are looking for you. So we're Rare DX. You have this referee guy, here's YU7AW listening to our audio, and you kind of ignore him after a while. One thing we've learned through experience, or at least I've learned, is you try not to read the referee's body language. So the referee knows how you're doing. The referee is bored fundamentally. He's listening to the audio. He's looking at the live score, and sometimes you get a little depressed if the referee's not paying attention to what you're doing, because you're thinking, oh, he must be really must be losing. Or if the referee is paying a lot of attention, you think that's great, but that can fake you out. So try not to pay too much attention. You run the contest with your teammate, different rules, different strategy. In this case, we had talked over strategy quite a bit more with Tree, and we're trying to implement the strategy as best we can. Everything worked fine as far as we're concerned. No problems, no big QRM problems. But the point is, everybody's doing this at the same time. So all these other teams are intents doing the same thing. They have their own equipment, but they have the same antennas, generator, kind of flat location, etc. Here's the Slovenian team with Ed W0YK as a referee there. They're all running this thing. Here's the kids. I call them the kids. They're both in their 40s now. These are the guys that won in Boston. Here they are in Germany, I think. Dan N6MJ and KL9A, who also lives in Montana now, by the way. And they're running. So it's kind of a field day style contest, except for all these guys, and most of them were guys, although there were some gals, running on these teams are some of the best operators in the world. So they can make you look like an idiot. You're not the best operator in the room anymore by any stretch of the imagination. So you're running this, and you've got everybody else doing things too. What are they doing? Well, here's one of the referees, Harry, RA3AUU. He's a little bored. He's clowning around. This picture on the right is the German support team we had at our location. I didn't see any of this, but they're having a little party there, eating some cheese and drinking some beer and doing whatever. It was a nice day that day. So you run this contest, and it's all over, and there's a closing ceremony. And so they pack everybody into this big room, and they give out the awards. And this is the 6 people, because they're two-person teams, gold, silver, and bronze winners. for Germany, they have a big deal. They do some other stuff too. They give out awards for most accurate log, most contacts, all kinds of most multipliers, all kinds of different awards. But basically, somebody wins. Okay, they give out these awards. They have a big party afterwards. So, what's the takeaway from this? Okay, so the takeaway is that there's 52 teams and 51 of them lose. So there's more to things than that, right? So it's no fun to lose. But one of the really cool things about WRTC as a competitor is that it is a shared experience. And you know this as well. Whenever you run a contest, right after the contest, you have so many stories in your head about what to tell and what happened and how conditions were and how this station turned up or this happened in your shack and all kinds of things. And everyone else that's run the contest has done the same thing. And they have their own stories. And of course, the memories are fresh. And it's always fun talking to people after a contest. But WRTC is probably the ultimate in that respect, because all the people that you also ran the contest and did the exactly same thing that you did are all in the same room with you. So it's like you get done, you take a cat nap or whatever, and you get back out to the hotel lobby, and there you are. And it really is fun, just shooting the breeze, talking the war stories of what happened in the contest. So it's clearly fun. I mean, I've done it a number of times, and it's like I say, you relive the experience and swap stories, and that's great. That's a lot of fun. Here's some pictures of people doing just that. These are kind of amazing pictures now because this was in Germany, and it just goes to show you how the world has changed. There's a bunch of Russians and Ukrainians partying together. They all look like they're getting along pretty well. Sadly, we know that's not the case today, but it's an example. I mean, the international flavor of this, the Eastern Europeans, the Russians, the Japanese, the Brits, the Americans, South Americans. I mean, everyone is there at this thing. It's pretty cool. So I'm just going to leave you with some observations as a competitor, what this is like. And I guess along the way, I'm also telling you a little bit WRTCs, because I will tell you that before I get into this, you don't have to be a competitor to enjoy WRTC. It's a lot of fun from your home station, just to try to work these people, right? I mean, there they all are on, but there's special calls. They're 100-watt stations, and there's often awards for working more of them. It's also a lot of fun to go to WRTC. You can be a referee, you can be a helper, or you can just be someone that shows up and has a pleasant week in in Italy, hanging out with hams, a lot of hams that you know. So it is really, they're really, really super cool events. As a competitor, though, I will tell you that it's kind of an emotional roller coaster, because there's so much hope, and there's so much satisfaction, so much planning, a little bit of frustration, not too much, in terms of getting everything going, making all the plans, implementing the plans, getting all your stuff over there, figuring out your strategy. And then there's a big high when the contest hasn't started yet, and you're making plans and you have your hopes, and then that can be met with a low when you find out you didn't do very well, or you didn't do as well as you thought you could do. So it's kind of a emotional roller coaster. It's an incredible amount of work for the host. I mean, the Italians right now are trying to manage the arrival of probably 600 or 700 hams from all over the world. They're going to be dealing with rules. They're going to be dealing with logistics. Going to be dealing with finances. Going to be dealing with everything you can possibly imagine, staffing, all kinds of things. So it's a gigantic amount of work. Credit to the organizations that have hosted it. It's incredible. I will say that as a competitor, this can go to your head. You're treated like a prima donna. They get this little badge that says you're a competitor, and you walk around and you get your meals paid for, and they pay for your room and all this kind of stuff, which I think in Italy, they're actually scaling back a little bit, which is fine. But you do get this sort of oh, well, you're a competitor kind of thing. And well, I'm a competitor until I run, then I'm a loser. Right. But that's kind of thing. But you do you meet up with some people that you're going to remember and interact with the rest of your life. And it's really pretty cool. And let's face it, I mean, it's a completely different kind of contest. Uh it doesn't involve hardware building. It's not like contesting like you might have where you make an improvement to your station. It's purely a competition, and some people are better at it than others. It's you have a 24-hour period to implement your strategy, do what you need to do, and some people do it better than others. And hats off to them, because you've seen the same call signs show up at the top of these listings. It's pretty amazing. A couple observations on the competition. Um, it's not perfect. Okay. It's never been perfect. It's a concept of leveling the playing field, so people can run a contest where everything's the same. So you guys are in Vermont, I'm in Montana. Gee, that's not the same. I got this station, you got that station, all that kind of stuff. The idea is you level all that out, and it's a pure operating competition, and not quite. I do think that you see this in other venues, that people have a tremendous pride in competing for their country. And that's a wonderful thing, but it also can bring out the worst in people. You see it in the Olympics. You see it in places where people do things, they stretch the rules to get the edge, and they justify it in all the usual ways. We did this because everyone else is doing it, or whatever the justifications are. I think that the country versus country thing can bring out the worst in teams at times. I think there has been some cheating in this. Matter of fact, I know there's been some cheating in it. It's largely unrecognized. How do you cheat in a WRTC? Well, it's quite simple. Everyone is supposed to be anonymous. In other words, you're given a call sign. No one is supposed to know who you are. Of course, they figure it out. They figure out who you are, and then your countrymen elsewhere feed you contacts, right? That the other teams don't get. There's all kinds of ways of doing that, and I think it's an unrecognized problem. Some people, particularly the Europeans, have started turning this into a technological competition. In other words, here are the rules. I get to have 2 transmitters. What if I have 5 transmitters and I have this really fancy interlock system that allows me to only have 2 transmitters on the air at the same time, et cetera, et cetera. So the urge is to have more and more technological sophistication as a way, once again, of getting an edge, which I think is outside the spirit of this competition, but that's just my opinion, but that's the way some of it's going. But the nice thing about this whole concept of WRTC is that it's always changing. So the Italians are hosting it, and the Italians get to make rules. And the Italians have decided, for example, to give sideband contacts more points than they have in the past. They can do that. They're the hosts. So that's the rule that the competitors will have to adapt to. And other rules, other situations, other antennas, all kinds of things that you can do as a future host that can change it, perfect it, make it different, make it better, hopefully, and keep it going. So that's pretty much it for my talk. I'm hoping there's another room with tens of thousands of people listening to it. But I think that's all I have. So I'm going to stop my share and be happy to take a question or start a conversation.